Overfeeding our roses? Let's admit it, we all made that mistake. So in this video I'm talking about the reaction of soil and plant to fertilizer overdose, toxic signs, and how to save that beloved rose. Hello everyone, Olga Carmody with you today. Over-fertilization is the most common cause of nutrient excesses. It can be our dogs, for example, look at this, some sort of animal probably urinated on my grass, so the same can happen to your rose. But usually over-fertilization is caused by humans. And of course the perfection, where is the end of it? That beautiful bloom season we're all waiting for. And sometimes when we over-fertilize, it can all end up in a big disaster. It is a serious problem and it cannot be ignored. It has to be addressed as soon as you can. And let's look at this graph. This is a graph of a reaction of plant to the presence of fertilizers. So at the beginning, when we start adding fertilizers into the soil, the plant responds positively. The new leaves develop, new blooms develop, fruits or vegetables, whatever plant is designed to produce. And plant reacts very beneficially to the increase of fertilizers in the soil. And then comes the point where the fertilizer reaches its still point, where adding extra fertilization is not going to do anything. It's going to waste our money, time and efforts. And if we continue doing it, the fertilizers go to the point where they are becoming toxic and harmful to the plant. The beginner gardener sometimes think, oh, let me just add a little bit more fertilizer and my rose would be blooming so much better. Well, if fertilization level reaches this point on the graph where fertilizer is actually toxic to the plant, then the plant health, blooming productivity, or whatever we're expecting that plant's perfection to be, is starting to decline. And the end here, right here, is almost the death of the plant. So if we ignore that problem for a long time and keep fertilizing our rose would be dead, and it would be very difficult to bring it back into its healthy stage. But there are signs, there is hope. We can do a lot of things to save that rose. So let's talk about what happens inside the soil and the plant when we add too much of fertilizers. First, let's make a distinction between fertilizers and amendments. Fertilizers are substances which we add to the soil, and they have direct effect on plants' life and nutrition. And basically the biggest word here is salt compounds. So fertilizers come into the soil in the form of salt compounds, and salt is really a big word here. Amendments, they do not have the direct influence on the plant. They influence the physical and the chemical compositions of soil. They condition soil, and as a result, plants grow so much better. So these are two differences which we have to keep in mind. So the beginner gardener might think that once we put fertilizer into the soil, the roots of the plant take it in and the rose eats it. Well, it doesn't work like that. When we put fertilizer into the soil, again, salt compounds, they get dissolved in water, and then that is the form which is available for roots of the rose to take in. But what happens if there is too much salt in the soil? Well, the roots of the rose begins to struggle because plant cannot take so much salty solution inside. And very often when we are talking about potted rose, sometimes the liquid from the plant, the water from the plant, can leave the plant and join the salt compounds if there are too many of them. Here goes the train. We live fairly close to the train here. Too much salt, the roots of the rose are struggling. They are making a very big effort to take that water from the soil, and there is not enough water to dissolve all those salt compounds. As a result, the roots of the rose are shriveling, and there is such a very unpleasant situation happening as root rot. And if half of the roots of the rose are damaged, that basically is a death sentence to the plant. There's no way you can save it. And of course, we don't see what's going on under the soil level. But on top of the soil, we see all sorts of signs. So let's talk about the signs of over-fertilization. The first biggest sign might be, especially when roses are in pots, as I said before, would be wilting. And why is it? Because the roots are struggling to take all that salty water. They cannot, and as a result, the plant doesn't get a lot of water. Evaporation is not happening, all the nutrients are not coming up the stems, and plant is wilting. Very important to realize, what are you doing to the rose? Why rose is wilting? Is it because of too much water? Is it because of a small amount of water, or over-fertilization? Some beginner gardeners, when they see that the plant is wilting, right away the assumption is, oh, there is not enough water, and they are putting even more water. And what do plants' roots do? They need to breathe to be able to uptake the nutrients. And the amount of air in the soil is around 25% in healthy soil. So rose roots do need that air. And if we are going to, and if we see that rose is wilting, and we are straight away thinking, oh, this is the only sign of drought conditions, we put more water into that soil, the root rot is happening. So that's one of the signs of over-fertilization, especially for potted roses. Then we go into the leaf burn, especially the margins at the edges of the leaves are starting to turn brown, and the tissue death is happening towards the center of the leaf. Again, rose is not able to take all those salt compounds in. The area around the root system of the rose is toxic, and you can see a lot of browning and eventually the death of leaves. They're falling off, branches are becoming brown, and of course, no beautiful blooms. Some roses can behave in two different ways as a response to fertilizer overdose. Some roses will go into excessive vegetative growth, meaning leaves and stems. And I must say that I do like bushy, full roses with a lot of greenery. Some people don't. Some people like to see a lot of blooms on their roses. But that's a sure sign that there is too much, especially nitrogen in the soil. But another way how roses might behave to fertilizer overdose would be stunted growth, short stems, small leaves. Rose sees the environment as toxic, and the look of the rose is the growth of the rose is very stunted. And contrary to popular belief, very excessive growth is not a sign of a healthy behavior of a plant. Very often it can be an overdose in fertilizers, and what happens with that excessive growth? It becomes vulnerable to all sorts of pests. Aphids love all that beautiful greenery, and our rose suddenly is susceptible to especially sucking insects, which are attacking it left and right, and we don't know what to do with that. So what to do when we have over-fertilized rose? Well, we have to understand, we have to act quickly, because the situation is developing fast and our rose is declining fast. So the first thing which I would recommend is to go into the soil and take as much of that fertilizer as possible. All the granules, all the spikes, all the slow release fertilizer which is still there in that soil, take it out, scoop it out and get rid of it. The second step would be leaching. Meaning, we apply a lot of water into that root area to bring all the nutrients which are sitting there, all that excess, into the lower horizons of soil. This way the root area around the rose would be free of all that fertilization. And the big advice is not to waterlog your rose. You do a drip irrigation or you water it here and there, but consistently. please do avoid water puddles around your rose, especially in heavy soils where drainage is not as strong. In my case, we live in Connecticut, drainage is very strong here, so even if I water my rose constantly, there will be still a lot of air in the soil. Rule number 3 would be to match the fertilizer to your rose. And there are so many fertilizers now available on the market. And usually I would advise the beginner gardener to go with specialty fertilizers which are designed specially for roses. For example, Epsoma company is producing beautiful, natural, slow-release fertilizer especially for roses. And what happens if we are trying to use different fertilizers, sometimes there would be one element overdose, and we probably won't notice it, and as a result we can have that toxicity of that element in the soil. And the danger of that can be that pH of soil might be changing, the micronutrients would be changed, the way the plant can take different nutrients can be changed. Talking about all the microorganisms living in that soil. So imagine what that toxic environment does to the healthy life of soil. So we have to keep that in mind too. So beginner gardeners, go for fertilizers which are specifically formulated for roses. Rule number 4. If you worry about over-fertilizing, of course, we follow the label. If label says 1 cup, we don't add 1.5 cups, just in case we have those beautiful extra blooms. No, you have to just promise to yourself 1 cup and that's it. Try to use natural, organic, slow-release fertilizers, and the chances of overdose are minimized. And please do keep in mind, when you're ready to fertilize, make sure that there are no conditions of drought and stressed plant are present, since when plant is dehydrated, even the small overdose can be harmful. So always make sure that you follow the label, and label says what is the plant before fertilization and what is the plant after, to make sure that that fertilizer is well watered in. So you can see that we can do a lot of things to save that beloved rose. And by the way, it would be very lovely if you would like this video and subscribe to my channel. Do put your nose into a flower today. Happy gardening, and we will see you in our next video.